So my buddy asked me this morning, he said, Joe, how do you prepare for a wife, man? I always hear that. I said, that's easy. Most people don't do it, but it's easy. I said, so you take your emotional trauma, right? Deal with it. You take your financial trauma, you deal with it. You deal with your health problems, you deal with it. You deal with all the things that are hindering you today, because if it hinders you, it'll hinder them. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for being on my show, actually. For anybody who doesn't know Joe, he is an ex-military veteran and doing wonderful, wonderful work with his Purpose and Resilience program, you know, helping other people to overcome their fears, to become stronger in their mindset so they can be resilient to any challenge which comes. And it's so good work, which I can see. We've been following each other for quite some time, and I see your lovely, lovely work, the feedback which you're getting from all these people. And I guess sometimes I think people don't realize how much of a blessing it is to indirectly help other people who don't even know you.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and their prayers actually come then in fruition, especially when people are going through hardship, personal hardship, that it does have effect. So it works both ways.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was talking to one of the students yesterday, and I said, sometimes, you know, when we pray, we're looking for some mystical thing to happen. You know, we're looking for some mystical, you know, cosmic thing to happen to us. And a lot of times it's people that help us. It's a lot of times our Creator will send people to help us. And I said, that's the most awesome thing. You know, when I started this journey of self-improvement, I started this journey with trying to heal myself. I never forget, I was begging God, please help me. And he sent a monk to come to help me. And I thank God he did. I thank my Creator that he did. I thank God that he actually heard my prayers, because it's something of familiarity where you see the person is a human being and they've been through, you know, traumatic events in their life. And you're like, wow, I want to be that guy. I want to be resilient. And, you know, and I also tell people about being a healthy dose of envy, and in a good way, where you look at things, you're like, oh, wow, you know, that person has come through something. Let me go learn from them. Let me take the moment to absorb their knowledge and see how they did it, you know, and it takes a little bit of envy to do that. And, you know,
may I just correct you? It's maybe envy is maybe the wrong word to use. It's more the curiosity, the hunger.
Curiosity. Yes, thank you for that. Curiosity.
Envy is used in a negative way, where curiosity and the hunger of, you know, wanting to learn from others.
That's the word I was looking for. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired. Yeah, thank you so much. It was curious. I was curious of him. Yeah. Very, because nothing fazed him. Claude Austin Thomas, nothing fazed him. And I'm so glad for that. Thank you for that. Nothing fazed him at all. And I wanted to be that. And I tell people, when you get into healing, what shocks you about healing is when you really realize it'd be the most simplest things. It'd be like, whoa, that's why I encourage people to go find therapy and to make sure find a very, very good therapist. And so you can map out some things. It's that person that is in the outside looking in, you know, and they can show you some things that maybe you didn't look at.
That's right.
And it's so simplistic. And
I mean, sometimes we're so ingrained in our own misery, in our own knowledge, in our own way of thinking, that we actually don't believe that somebody else can help us because they're not in our situation. That's as simple as it is. But it doesn't have to be someone who experienced exactly the same things. It just has to be someone who is not emotionally involved in this situation.
Invested, yeah.
Who can actually observe things in a very objective way and maybe spot things which we cannot spot because it's overshadowed by our emotions. It's as simple as that. And even, I could be a good psychologist, for instance, or a good coach, but it doesn't mean that sometimes I take the right steps in approaching maybe my children or my own family, because there's different emotions involved where you actually overstep certain things, or you just dismiss other things which you wouldn't do with another person.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that, in with the therapist or with an outside party, I think that they're not emotionally invested in it, at all. And they have no stake in the game. So it's like, I can give you my honest opinion and tell you how I did this and what I would do from a standpoint of healing, and that's what I think a lot of times what I do. I give them a moment. I'm not emotionally invested in anything that they do, and I can look in the outside and say, okay, how can I help you with this, And one of the things we did yesterday is a great example where we, in a part of my program, we talk about the childhood trauma and how did this affect you as an adult? And I think people have this misconception and get confused when they think that your childhood doesn't play an important part in your adulthood. I thought that when I was coming through, I was like, wait a minute, I'm a grown man. I'm older. I'm an adult. I'm not worrying about the child stuff until I got there and I realized, wow, this is important. Okay, whoa, wait a minute. This plays an important part. I don't understand. And I had to take a moment. I had to take a breather and really assess my childhood and the trauma that I've been through and to confront it. And I thank my creator for it. And I'm glad I did, because I don't think I would have had the relationship I have with my moms and my dad that I have now, who is calling me now, after I talked to him this morning. But,
that's okay.
And I don't think I would have had the relationship that I had. I would have been, the same, guy, like, hey, look, you got to figure that out. That's not on me, but for me to step up to the plate, even though that's pretty much my character, I would have been kicking and screaming all along the way, but I haven't. I've been sitting here and I've been staying here and I've been helping and I've been there and I've been positive through the whole thing. That's not usually how I would handle things if it wasn't for healing and doing the work, the inner work that it takes to be there. It wasn't easy, but that's why I tell people a therapist is very important in order to get to the root of things.
And a good therapist as well.
Very good. Yeah.
There's a lot of therapists around, not that I'm implying on that they're bad therapists, but often not every therapist can be a therapist, and there's a lot of differences in there. You can be academically gifted, very well gifted, but it doesn't mean that you have necessarily the social skills to communicate and understand the other person. So there's huge differences, and unfortunately you do have to sometimes go through 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 until you get to that point where you do actually feel connected with that person, with that professional who can actually help you in your journey. So people do need encouragement and be persistent in these things, and then build up a certain resilience rather than giving up after a first bad experience in their own way. And we've spoken about that before, and you had to go through some form of difficulties and challenges, but you didn't give up, and that's the most important thing, not to give up. Just keep on going and keep on searching until you find it.
I can't tell you how many, I went through a lot of therapists until I found the one that I actually needed. And we connected. Not so much need, I did need her. I'm not gonna take that away from her. And she was very good at getting me to see things a different way, but that took a connection, and she wasn't afraid to go places in my mind and ask questions that made me think. And that's where the connection came. And, she always told me, look, I'm not expecting to see you every day. I'm not expecting to see you once a week. And at one point that you're going to have to go out and do this work on your own. And I was like, okay. And I did. I was surprised. I was like, oh, whoa, be out on my own. I don't know about that. But that's where the connection comes, and that's where the courage comes from in order for you to be better in whatever whatever you're seeking.
And I guess she has given you the tools to then seek or practice these things independently outside, outside of the therapy environment, where you could just do a trial and error and just find out how it works with the tools she's given you.
I'm going to tell you right now, I was scared when she said, well, instead of us meeting twice a week, we're going to meet once. And I was like, what? Okay, but then after, doing that, then we started meeting, once a month. And I was good with that, because I used the stuff that she gave me, the tools that she gave me. And I said, I'm going to just use these. And I tell people, you're not going to feel happy all the time. That's delusion. That's delusion. And that's not realistic. You can't keep that up because we don't live in that utopian society. We don't live in that world. We live in a world that has balance of negative energy and positive energy. It's just what it is. We have to live with that. I would love for it to be positive and, sunshine and rainbows and gummy bears and, rivers of chocolate all day. But we don't live in that world. That's not the world we have. So we have to.
Plus, what it also is, it's the same, sorry to interrupt you. What is very important is happiness doesn't mean being high all the time with your emotions. That's not what it means. Because being high all the time, being lifted all the time, being illuminated all the time doesn't actually measure happiness. It's the same with success as well. You cannot measure something if you do not have anything to measure that with. Because it doesn't have no value. It doesn't have no meaning. It can only have a meaning. We know what happiness means because we can measure it with low emotions. We can measure it with negative energy. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what it means. It would just be anything. It would just be there. It would just be unappreciated because it's always the same. So once we start measuring that with lower emotions, with negative experiences, then that's when we start actually measuring the level of happiness as well. So that is where it comes from. With success and failure, exactly the same. It wouldn't mean anything if we haven't got anything to measure that with. And that is why we're human beings with these various emotions, to be able to understand what it means to be happy, what it means to be sad, what it means to be in love, what it means to lose someone, what it means to be sad. All these kind of different emotions, they're important for our brain, they're important for our being, for our survival.
I remember that because when my therapist, I told her, I said, well, why do I feel bad on some days and, good on the next? And the first thing she said was, because you're human. And she put it in some context, the same context that you, similar context that you did. She said, Joe, because you're human. And she said, you're not supposed to walk around positive all the time and happy, everything is awesome. And she said, that's delusion. That's not possible, And she said, and I never forget, she said, sometimes you're going to have down days. She says, I have down days. And she said, it's okay. I understand that this is a moment and I try to move away from it. And she said, I try to move away, and within a couple of hours, it's gone. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be great all the time. Sometimes I'm nothing. I'm just wake up and I'm just fixing my coffee and I'm moving on. And I'm looking at her and I see all these degrees on the wall. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's, supposed to be the study of the mind. And she has this, and she's saying she has a down moment. And that was my moment. And I'm like, wow, I think I may be looking at this thing called life a little differently. And I did. And I'm thankful for it. And I'm thankful for people like you that come in my life like that. And that I can listen to, and I can get something that can be able to help me grow as a human being, and it's something. It's something.
Absolutely. That is very important to understand these things. And I'm so glad that you had this therapist who has actually helped you to understand these various emotions, because happiness also means kindness, kind to yourself. And being kind to yourself is understanding yourself. I always say to my clients that imagine you have a computer, and that computer runs 24 hours a day, means on a happiness level. If you measure it with that 24 hours a day, it wouldn't stop. You don't give it a rest. You don't actually slow it down. You don't do nothing. It just runs. There will be a time when it shuts down because it's exhausted, or something suddenly doesn't work no more, because you haven't given it the care and attention. Maybe you didn't upgrade it. Maybe it needed, I don't know, better electricity, better battery, all these kind of things. You haven't maintained anything. You just let it run. It doesn't work no more. So that is how our human mind and our human body actually work. It is fueled by our life. It is fueled by our emotions. It is fueled by our brain function, but everything else is hardware. And in order for the hardware to work properly, we need to have it balanced in the right way. So we need to have a rest. We need to sometimes just hold back when we're challenged, for instance. We need to maybe one side be happy, on the other side maybe just take a rest as well, look after our body as well as our mind as well, be healthy, for instance, need to look after our diet, for instance, as well, take enough hydration. So all these things come into fruition with each other, and they create imbalance energy from one to another if we do not take care of that, or if there's external factors coming in which are actually maybe disturbing this kind of function, and I often say to people, don't think when I'm talking about positive or negative energy, it doesn't just mean it's some magical thing where you just walk in and you feel positive energy from somewhere. That's not how it works. It's about understanding your environment, your surrounding, yourself. It's about observing, understanding behavior, emotions, movements, your intelligence. That's why it all comes together, where you actually measure then negative and positive energy.
It's funny because I tell people all the time, you should take breaks. And people say, no, this thing I used to say back in the day, I'll sleep when I'm dead, was the dumbest thing that I used to say when I was young. And you think that you can keep up that level of grinding, the level of work, the level of hard work all the time without taking a moment to say, I'm going to shut down. I'm going to shut down. And to recharge, to look at things differently, to give yourself a moment and forgive yourself. And that's important too. When you make mistakes, all those things are important in your life to be able to create this, I like to call it harmony, where it's, hey, it may not sound very good. This part over here may not sound very good by itself. But if you put it in an orchestra of your mind, if you put it in an orchestra of your life, it balances out.
Yeah.
And so I think that taking a moment, taking a break, taking a knee is very important in your life. Sometimes just wake up in the morning and do nothing. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. And I find that people, especially the people I talk to, they they think in this concept, no, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to keep grinding. And I say, then what? After that, what? Huh? And I never forget, I was talking to this guy. He was pretty famous. And he was telling me how, he's grinding and he has to do this, and it's all about his family, and it's all about this and all about that. And, he sleeps 2 hours out of the day, and then he's in the studio, he's doing all of this. And I asked him, I said, how long do you think you can keep that up? This is all, what you mean? I said, at what point do you think the valve breaks and you run out of gas? Because all you're doing is making people accustomed to you carrying their baggage. Yeah. All you're doing is making people accustomed and feeling good and comfortable with you accepting all the responsibility.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yes.
I've been there. And I said, at some point, it gets overbearing, man.
Yeah.
And I said, but who told you that? And I knew where it comes from. It comes from his childhood. And I said, that stuff doesn't make any sense. I know we see celebrities and everybody else say that. They're lying, man.
Yeah.
They're lying. They're not telling the truth. And he was like, no, they say this. I said, listen, that sounds really good for you to work hard and go out and do it. And I'm not saying hard work doesn't pay off. I'm not saying that grinding is not important, but resting is even more important.
That's right.
Taking balance is even more important. Sometimes doing nothing. If you got to take a break, take a break. That's not always a good thing to be working like that all the time. And trust me when I tell you, when they get on their private jets, they're sleeping. When they're in their hotels, they're sleeping. Don't think that they're sitting there and they're, I'm grinding 24 hours a day, I'm sleeping too. Man, don't believe that. Don't believe that. That's not true. That's not true at all.
Absolutely agree.
And I said, it sounds very good when you hear these celebrities say it. It sounds very good because you admire them. So you're going to hold on to whatever they say, but it's not true, man. It's impossible. So even though, yes, they got to a certain point where they can have a staff, yes, but they're taking breaks. They're taking breaks, and it's okay. It's okay. Don't just walk out and think that they're grinding. You can't keep that up. I tried. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Trust me. If it worked and I could keep it up and maintain it, I would have. But I was going crazy. I said I couldn't keep it up.
I mean, what it also is, you made a very, very important point about taking a break, and that it's all included. I mean, you used the word harmony. Professionally, I would use the word self-kindness. So self-kindness includes so many things where people actually forget what it exactly means. It just means being real to yourself, understanding your body, understanding what you need to do in order to recharge. We just need to take a break and give a break to our body and our mind to recharge. And as I said earlier, that if you run a computer, even just to have something physical in front of you to picture it, it does not work 24 hours. It will give up at some point. And our body is no different. It's exactly the same, that you need to give yourself a break to recharge. You need to give your mind a break to recharge, which is why we have to sleep certain hours at least, because our mind needs a reset. It needs to process what we've gone through in the entire day. All these information become overloaded if the mind can't process these things, and then start new again from the next day. If we keep on using it all the time, we become tired and we cannot absorb new information normal.
Yeah, I found that to be so true in my life. When I first started Purpose and Resilience, I was so excited, and the reason why Purpose and Resilience, I think, was so successful in the beginning and then continue to be relevant is because I took a break. I said, I'm going to be myself. I take a lot of breaks. Sometimes in April, I'm going to be taking my sabbatical and going from April to June, no social media. Everything will be pre-recorded, but yeah, I'm going to be working on myself, doing some things and doing what I need to do. That's how I can be better for everyone else. When it first started out, I just was take breaks. I'll take weekends. I'll go kite flying. I would walk. I would do certain things in order to get my mind that ability to rest, because you can become weary. And if the journey is long, what good is it to you to quit in the middle?
Yeah.
Well, in the middle, it's because you're grinding for so long. But I'd rather take a rest along the way, and keep that pace up for the long journey instead of let me go. Oh, I'm going over here. I'm going to be on this podcast. I'm going to go here. I couldn't do it. And I shut down and I said, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go here because I need to rest. And I started to prioritize my life and where I needed to be.
Absolutely. And you have to be example of the work you do. If you start failing on contradicting yourself on what you actually want to achieve with people or with your brand itself, with your project itself, then we wouldn't be any help for that. We cannot practice something on a client and trying to make them feel better, trying to improve their life if we're not doing it on ourselves. It doesn't work.
Exactly. And that's, I think that's the reason why my self-improvement challenge, my 30-day challenge, my 30-day self-improvement challenge so popular. It's because a lot of people, I use a lot of things that I teach, I use for myself. The inner child, focusing on yourself, which I find is the most hard thing for people to do.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that is. It's something that when I started, I really thought I was focusing on myself. I really thought that I was thinking as an individual, that I was doing things because I want to do it. And there's doing things that I thought was the right thing to do. For me, I thought I was focusing on myself, and I wasn't. Until I really did it. And I realized whoa, wait a minute, this feels uncomfortable. Why does this feel uncomfortable? Well, it feels uncomfortable because you've never done it before. Why is it, taking a break from social media felt uncomfortable? Well, because you never did it before, and you start doing things to practice that self-care and that just a pause to focus on yourself. And you feel uncomfortable because you've never done it before. And maybe because you've neglected yourself for so long, and you put up this facade to everyone that you're this because you're not comfortable with yourself. And I wasn't until I realized that, hey, you know what? I'm going to live as my authentic self. And if you don't like it, I understand, and take care, be safe and be well. And I decided when I first decided to focus on myself, it was the most uncomfortable thing in the world. I couldn't do it. It took me a very long time. And I was looking for people to help. Please, let me help you. Please. And, my therapist, she wouldn't allow me. She said, you're not to help anybody for the next, I think she gave me 60 days, without the exception of, emergencies and stuff like that. But I want you to always do something for yourself. And I never forget the first week I went out. She told me, Saturday, I want you to take yourself out, get dressed, get dressed. And I tried everything in my power to limit that. And I was like, what am I doing? And I remember she said, if you feel like you're about to make an excuse or limit it, I want you to write it down. And I wrote it down. And I was supposed to leave out at 8 o'clock. I'll never forget that day. I was supposed to leave out at 8 o'clock, and I was going to take myself to breakfast, and I was going to go eat lunch, and then I'm going to eat dinner. And I'll never forget, I said I wanted to eat at this really nice restaurant that serves breakfast, right, in DC. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go here. And I kept dumbing it down. I said, I'll just go eat something fast food. And I looked at it and I said, wow, wow. And I forced myself to go out, and I never forget that first day I cried. I cried because I've never put myself first. And that's how uncomfortable it was. And like I said, and I teach that with in my self-improvement challenge, that every Saturday they're to take themselves out. That day is for them. And they go through it. They text me, oh, but what, can I move it to Monday? Can I move it there? And they always want to move it when it involves other people. And I'm like, no, it's for you. I did that. And it shocks the mind to realize how you have neglected yourself for so long. And I tell people, and to see that joy on their face, like, hey, they take pictures of cologne or perfume they buy or shoes they buy, and they're like, I did it, I did it, I did it, you know? And I was the same way. It's the same way, you know? And I also forced them not to go online. I want them to go in the store and know what it feels like to physically go to the store and buy something for themselves. And I'm telling you right now, they go through it. They go, one went in the store, came back out in the store, sat in the car, and it took her everything to not call her daughter to say, come go shopping with me so she can buy something for her. And then she can buy something for herself. I said, no, you're going to buy something for yourself. And now it's a habit for me. Now it's a habit for them, you know, that they look forward to Saturdays. You look forward to your days off now, because that's your rest day. It's something you want to do. And that's the importance of self-care. That's the importance of taking that moment and that pause to do something for yourself. Not be selfish, because, you know, you have to still got to help some people, and it feels good to help people, but it's a balance. Yeah. It's a balance, you know. So
and that is so important. It's very important. I mean, I'm actually quite excited listening to you about this, and I think our viewers would like to hear more about this program itself, because it's such an important thing which you're mentioning about self-care, what actually self-care means, and not to overstep the marks neither, not to become selfish in the other way, you know. But at the same time, to acknowledge that you are of importance. If you cannot take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others in that extent? You cannot do that. You physically can't do that. Your mind cannot do that. So in order to take care of your environment, you need to take care of yourself. You need to be kind to yourself. So yes, explain to us what it exactly means. I must also say that Joe has a very, very large following with this program, Purpose and Resilience, all through social media. He's wonderful, wonderful, absolutely lovely. And I think he's a big, big, huge contribution to society of healing, of, you know, bringing a better world, making better people, improving mindsets, especially in this world of suffering nowadays.
Yeah. I know my Purpose and Resilience, I actually renamed the program because I wanted to be separate from me. I renamed it HARP. And HARP is Healing, Accountability, Resilience, and Purpose.
Wonderful.
And that comes out to, you know, spell HARP. And what it's about is, for 30 days, you're going to focus on yourself. Nobody else, you know, and a lot of people they what if it to death. Well, what about kids? What about that? This has nothing to do with your children. This has nothing to do with anything. It has everything to do with 90% of your free time outside of you taking care of your little ones, outside of your job. You will be focusing on yourself. The 10%, I don't care what you do with. But the 90%, you're going to be focusing on yourself. That means journaling. That means working out. That means cooking your own food. That means you meditating. That means you getting rest, self-care, hygiene. All of that is important. But I get them to focus on these things. And also the 10%, you take yourself out. You know, you may want to go, like I have some people who dating. If you want to go date, you go on a date, you know, if you want to go on a date. But it's after you're getting all of that done with yourself. My program, you also eat plant-based. I want you to focus, and I pick plant-based because I want you to focus on the food that you're eating, not processed. You can't have any processed foods, no processed food whatsoever. You everything you eat, you're going to focus on. You're going to eat. You're going to eat healthy. You're going to give yourself nutritious foods, and you're going to cook them. You can't go out. The only day you can go out is on Saturday. I'll allow you to go out once to take yourself out anywhere you want to go. But you still have to stay plant-based, and you also have to work out prior to you going out. And you have to get everything done before you go. Your journaling, meditation, workout has to get done before you go out. Then on Sundays, you're meeting, Sundays you're doing silent meditation where you don't speak for 24 hours. Outside, if you have a job or something like that, you got the kiddos or whatever, you deal with them. But Sundays, 24 hours, you don't speak. You watch movies, you got a book report that's due on Monday. And so you watch your movies, you look at the movies, and I'll give you movies that are about purpose. To show you what it looks like to sacrifice for yourself and your purpose. You know, some people have books they should have been reading. Some people have leadership they should have been doing. Some people are supposed to go to school and go to college to pursue something that they wanted to do, you know, and do. Some have podcasts that they want to start, public speaking. I want you to see what it is. And I always pick a villain that I want them to focus on, not a hero. And I get this question all the time. Why not the hero and the villain and just the villain? I said, well, the hero always wants to maintain the status quo. Always want to maintain the normal. The villain sees that there needs to be change and he wants to do something about it. And he's willing to do it drastically. And like this week, I have them watching Endgame with Thanos. I want him to focus on Thanos and see what he's willing to do for his purpose and watch. And I do that all the time. I find movies that I can get them to see in a certain level. We also focus on childhood trauma. We focus on relationship trauma, and we focus on neglect, of self-neglect. How do we neglect ourselves? Energy, how to live, you know, with ourselves and how not to give this energy out to so many people. You know, we also focus on family trauma. We have a lot of family trauma, how our family dynamic can affect who we are. You know, we also focus, I also work with people who, you know, have issues in regards to mother and father. We deal in that and how to not so much challenge them, but to let them know this is a boundaries for me. And if you want a relationship with me, you're going to have to respect me. You're going to have to respect this because I'm going to respect you, but I'm not going to allow you to walk all over me. It took me years to get that way, you know, because it used to be, yes, ma'am, no, mom, no, yeah, okay, no problem, I'll do it. It's like, no, that's not what I want to do. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do that. You know, I don't believe in that. I don't like that way. So, and also I think what's the last thing we do? We have classes Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We dissect this thing. We break it down. How do your lack of boundaries affect you? How did your childhood trauma affect you? You know, how did, you know, allowing this person to do certain things to you affect you? Look at it. Let's look at it, you know, and we look at your pain. And once you actually take accountability for it, you realize you can get rid of it. And it's not so, you know, and not in the literal sense, like you're going to stop forgetting about it, but you're going to recognize it and you're going to understand that you're not going to make any decisions off of that pain. anymore.
So it's setting boundaries for yourself. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Recognizing these things and setting boundaries to yourself. I can completely understand these things because I had to go through it myself. I've become a big empath, as we've spoken about that before. And in order to understand why I've become this big empath just means someone who wants to heal everybody, who sees pain and I want to heal, I want to provide, I want to overcare. And it goes to the point of overstepping someone else's boundaries. So even though someone may need it, but they may not need it in the way how I'm providing it. So I'm overcompensating for things. And that can then bounce back into the wrong direction where you create useless human beings, for instance, who then too much depend on you. And as soon as you take something away, because you're also human beings, it then has a negative reaction towards yourself. And because you cannot always continuously provide, be there, there are things when you do become exhausted and you then have to think, oh, maybe I created that monster, which was potentially there, but I just enhanced this habit for the other person because of the way I was. So my form of thinking about that was I had to understand where it came from. I knew I've gone through a lot of childhood trauma myself. But over the years, working in the mental health sector, it also made me realize that, understanding all this different trauma, I can see other people, how they're developing, how they're actually managing these things and what they're going through. So I could compare it with my own. And it wasn't until I started studying psychology, doing my degree, when I started understanding the reasoning about these things. Why am I the way how I am? Why are people reacting the way how they are towards me? Why are people suddenly, wherever they're negative, wherever they're positive, so much attracted in wanting things from me, in me wanting to provide for them? And why are things not going this way, how they should be going this way? Because you think to yourself, if you're such a good person, why is your life not good? Or why is things always happening? Or why are miseries happening? Why are people hurting you? All these kind of things do go through your mind until you start understanding the reason for that. So I had to set boundaries to myself, which is very hard. Even now I'm learning, progressively learning, which I can apply to clients easier than to myself. But I had to be realistic and say, if I'm practicing in this field and I'm in a good place internally now and I'm focusing, I'm developing, then I need to put it into practice for myself. And even if it hurts, as you said, sometimes it just hurts to say no. Just to say, no, I can't, or I don't want to. You cannot treat me like this. You should not feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
That is also a form of boundary. And that's how you develop further. Otherwise, you cannot. You will break yourself.
Yeah. And I have to be honest, I got to that point, because you can enable people so much and where they don't develop in their own life.
Yeah.
They don't. And you can't. And I said this to someone, honestly, if you really realistically look at it, it's not their fault. There's someone that's willing to take all the responsibility from them and say, I'll do everything, and I was that guy. I was that person. I was like, oh, I'll do everything. I'll do it all. Just come here. And then they would take them, if you build in a house, they just screw in one screw, but you built the whole house and you allow that person to take all the credit for it. And you say, you take all the credit. You do this, you did that. And they sit there and they get all the accolades and they get all this other stuff and they get the reward of building the house that they really didn't build. They just put a screw in. But you can't get mad at them. Yeah. You cannot get mad at them because, to be honest, it's your fault. It was my fault. When you do stuff for people, you enable them and they don't develop the hard work it takes to develop themselves. I
think you're being too hard to yourself in that way. Don't say it's not their fault at all, because we're all human beings. We have our own brain. It is our fault. And it takes two parties to do so. Yes, we have kind of facilitated. That's what I call myself, a facilitator. You know, we have maybe facilitated this habit of the other person to become that way, but we are not the reason for it. The reason for something is that individual themselves.
Yeah.
So you cannot take full accountability for the other person, because we are all human beings. We are individuals. Otherwise, we would be having the same brain, the same mindset, the same intelligence, the same thought process, which is why we are individuals. We are individual human beings with our own brains, with our own thought process. So the accountability has to be shared. In what way? That is irrelevant now. But you take your own accountability in providing or over providing for the other person. But at the same time, if the other person cannot be independent enough to do it for themselves, or wanting to give their responsibility away, then they have to take their own accountability for that. Because it is like someone committing a rape or murder, and you often hear scientists saying, oh no, that is that gene, that is because of this reason, that is because they came through that. That is actually taking the accountability for their actions away.
Wow.
You understand where I'm coming from?
I like that. I like that. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
You cannot make an excuse about someone's actions. Someone's actions are someone's actions. They have to take their own accountability for that.
I never looked at it like that. Thank you for that. I never looked at it like that. I have to change my thinking. Thank you for that. Because
You're very welcome.
If for me, I thought, wow, you know, why does this person, or why these people, you know?
Because if you turn it around, for instance, we providing for them could give us an excuse, oh, because of our childhood, because of the way how we are, we have done that. We could give ourselves the reason as well in the same way, and say we are innocent because of certain reasons.
Yeah, of course. And you know, that's funny. It's interesting that you say that now that I'm thinking of it. I'm like, wow, okay, I can't solely take the responsibility of certain people in my life, because now that I hold boundaries, I don't feel bad the same way I used to back in the day. Back in the day, I used to feel terrible. Oh my gosh, this person's working harder than, you know, let me do this and do all that for this person. Now I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. You know, yeah. And I say no off the lot a lot. You know, I laugh and joke sometimes, but I just say no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And I don't feel bad the way I used to anymore. And it's okay for them to feel upset or feel mad, and it doesn't affect me. It used to be a time where I used to become affected with their disappointment. Now their disappointment is theirs. There's nothing I can do with that. You shouldn't ask me, you know, and I'm not going to do something. That's why I don't fall for manipulation the way I used to, you know. And when I stop allowing myself to be manipulated, I think that's where the change happened. You know, like if I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it.
Absolutely, without feeling guilty about it as well, because people do try to put it onto you, where they use your emotional weaknesses or points which actually triggers these emotions to make you do certain things. I get that all the time, and especially with people who are willing to give, who are willing to do. People do use these methods to make them feel guilty, to make them do certain things what they want to do. You know, I hear that many times where somebody would make me feel, oh, you're ridiculous, or you're shameless, or you're irresponsible if you're not doing, or you haven't got no heart. No, why does it mean that just because I say no the one time, I do not want to do certain things, suddenly I do not have any heart? It does, you know, it doesn't make no sense. Just because you're used to me saying yes all the time, doesn't mean that I cannot say no. I am still a human being of, you know, feelings myself. But if I don't feel comfortable, I will say no without feeling uncomfortable about it, without feeling guilty about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it took me a long time to get there because I would inconvenience myself
Yeah.
in a drop of a dime. I mean, I would, oh my goodness, that old Joe was something else. And I would be so stressed out, be like, oh man, I got to go do this. I got to do this. I'm going to run over here. I'm going to run. Now, no, I'm not doing that.
Absolutely. And the
Because
inconvenience is not being recognized by the other person. That is the point which you have to make as well. That you think it will be appreciated or recognized by your actions will be recognized by the other person, but they don't. They don't see actually the trouble which you have to go through to make it happen.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I use that method recently when someone asked me to do something. I said, this is an inconvenience. I cannot continue to go that long or go with this, at a certain point. This is a major inconvenience for me. And they were like, well, I think you can do it if you adjust certain things in your life. I said, excuse me? No, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. Because the things that I want to do in my life is for me. If you don't like it, then okay, that's fine. And they got over it, and they figured it out, but that goes back to what I say, where you can get people accustomed to you always wanting to be inconvenienced instead of them trying. And you can always get people accustomed for being inconvenienced, you inconveniencing yourself. And I used to do that, and they're okay with it. Like you say, they're okay with it. They're like, oh, you want to inconvenience yourself? I'm cool. I'm going to do that, and people used to use emotional guilt to get me to do certain stuff. And here's the thing that got me. I knew what they were doing back then. I knew it. I was like, I know what you're trying to do. Like, I know it. Why am I allowing this? And the moment I got rid of people's approval, people's approval. Oh man, I say no before you even say hello. Hey, what's up? No. and hang up the phone sometimes, and not be so rude, but to set those boundaries of not being so open to help people.
Yeah. And it's not just helping. It's about I think it's about overbearing thinking. You think to yourself that someone else's opinion is maybe more important, or someone else's demand is maybe more important than your own. No, you make yourself a priority. That is what it's important, not in an egoistic way, but you make yourself a priority. It goes back to self-care again. It goes back to self-kindness again. If you do not put these things in place, you will be broken. Very, very quickly, because you cannot sustain that kind of work. I mean, I see that I think we mentioned that a little bit. I come from an Asian background and Asian Muslim background, and they're very, very strict in how they practice, how certain things are being custom and so on. So the first time I went on social media, it was a big, first of all, nobody really knew, but it was a big, huge no for everybody. Suddenly my family got to know that. Some of my family members, they did come back to me, not in a nice way, in a very, very kind of manipulative way, where they would say how shameful it is what I'm doing. Instead of looking actually at the messages, what I was trying to project, they would just look at, no, she's out there. She's maybe sometimes even dancing, or maybe just sometimes, presenting herself without looking a certain way. And that is what we don't like. She shouldn't be there. And I had to really make a stand and say to them, look, first of all, have you actually listened or looked at my clips, what I'm trying to do? Have you actually looked at the feedback which I even get from people, how much it's helping them? If you don't, then please stay out of my business. And this was the first time I had to stand up, because before that, I would always say, yes, it's fine. I would delete everything. And I've only been on social media from the last 10 months. So, it hasn't been that long, 10, 12 months now. So I had to always say, okay, yes, to agree with everything. But then I thought to myself, I'm not doing nothing wrong, not in my opinion anyway. If there was something vulgar, anything which is inappropriate, I would understand it, but I couldn't see no reason. I really had to analyze that and think to myself, no, I can't see no reason to justify that criticism. And that criticism has grown over the time, especially I'm thinking putting one and one together and my popularity as well, it will hurt somebody. There might be some jealousy around, there might be some envy around as well. There could be many factors, but I'm not going to give up my purpose, my vision, because somebody else doesn't like it.
Exactly. That was my biggest thing at first. And, that's why I think that's the reason why it took so long. Because I was more concerned about my so-called inner circle liking me, because people would point out, oh, you have a failed marriage, your ex-wife, she could say this and she'd say that about you, you're not, you wasn't pretty much looking perfect to everybody. And it took me a while. And I said, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to be me. What defines me? How do I define myself? And I said, I'm going to do it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. And I get criticism a lot, and I'm okay with that because it doesn't go anywhere with me. And I'm going to still do what I want to do. I'm going to do it. And if you don't like it, I'll never speak to you again. I've had someone say that. If you don't delete your stuff, I'll never speak to you again. Well, okay, well, good luck to you. I'm done. I'm not going to do it. And then a year or a couple of months, they say, oh, well, I'm going to stop talking to them. And they start to realize that nothing they say to you is going to stop you. And it's something that happens to them where they start to be like, well, maybe I need to start to accept this, that this is going to be this person. The moment they start to accept it, they become understanding. But then you still, I still have this apprehensive about that person, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to be Joe, no matter what. And when you be okay with people not, believing in you, when you're okay with people not seeing your vision, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be Joe. And if you don't like it, okay, I understand. Bye. But I'm still going to do this.
Absolutely. That's very strong. That's a very strong statement to make. It's a very strong one. And that's what a lot of people actually need to listen to and understand and, put it into practice, or trying to put it into practice, that we live our lives too much of what other people think or want instead of living to our true self. That is why a lot of people then are anxious in coming out, be unhappy, cheat, whatever they do. A lot of these things are triggered by insecurities or by pleasing someone else's opinion. We should not be doing that. I mean, I've even been told to that point by a Muslim man. Imagine that, someone who doesn't actually know me, not even my family, someone who doesn't know me on social media came out and said to me, oh, how many relationships did you have? I said two long relationships. Are you still together with the second one? I said, no. Oh, that is why they broke down, because you're on social media. When I had to laugh about that. My relationship broke down about 14 months ago. I mean, it broke down a long time ago, but 14 months, I said, officially, it cannot go any further. Yeah. My social media started from the last 10 to 12 months ago. So if you put it into practice, even in that way, how does it work? I had to really laugh about that. And I think to myself, people make their own opinion in their mind, or make their assumptions in their mind, just because of something they don't like or they don't believe in. It just doesn't fit together. It just
it's something. I'm telling you, it's amazing to me how if you really truly listen to people, they'll tell you what they dislike about you, and then they will try to make it sound like it's helping you. And if you really listen to it, they have a problem. And I had something similar happen with someone who said that I said something on the, I made a video and it came through some, one of my ex-wife's friend's feed. And I'm going to say something about him because I don't believe what he says, because remember when he did this? And I had to, and I never forget, she called me and she said, and I said, I just want you to think about that. We've been divorced for 4 or 5 years. Can you imagine the amount of work I've done within 5 years? I know the number 5 may seem like it's insignificant, but if you really look at it, look at how much work that I had to do on myself. And for a person who's stuck in the past because of whatever way they may have in their life, whether it's jealousy, whether it's envy, whatever it is, imagine what that opinion will sound like. It doesn't sound like it makes any sense. And she said, well, I said, yeah, you can't make that up. I said, you can't come up with that. Just think about it for a second. We've been 5 years went by. And I said, now, if I put it in months, it will make more sense. But they're stuck in the past in whatever way they are in their life. They're like, how can I formulate this opinion in order to get you to stop doing something that makes me feel uncomfortable or inadequate?
That is exactly the point which you're mentioning. It's very, very important. You remember we spoke about that on the phone as well earlier, that you will only receive criticism. First of all, you only receive criticism from people, especially on social media, if you're doing something right. You will not receive criticism if your things are not going well, or if nobody is interested. You will not receive criticism for that, because people are not interested in something which hasn't got any importance, any substance, any focus. They are not interested in that. They will only be interested in something which is going well, which is doing well, which has an impact on somebody, which creates a change. And the reason why people do that is not because of you. They're doing it because they cannot see that. It triggers something in their own mind. It triggers something from their own past. It triggers, as you said, envy, could be jealousy, could be insecurities, could be exposure of something where they feel guilty of their own life. And in order to make them feel better, they have to then project these insecurities, these negative energies onto you to create some form of disbalance in your life or in your purpose, to achieve what they want to achieve, to make them feel better. Because if they put you down, it will actually raise their own level, because you will become lower. And it will make them feel better. It will actually satisfy their needs, because they cannot raise their emotions to your purpose to make it better in their own life. And in order to make them better in their own life with their lower emotions, they have to lower yours.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that.
I like that, because I used to fall for that for so long. And I call it the transfer of power. Especially where, most people want to, if you take it into the relationship, it's if I can lower you, if I can lower you, I can control you more. Yeah. I can. It's
not about controlling you. It's about controlling their own life. Because somebody cannot come out of that bubble, the negative bubble they're sitting in, wherever it's the event, wherever it's the emotions, whatever it is, if they cannot come out of these trouble times, then they have to create that environment in a way that it makes it justified for them to stay in there.
Yeah.
If everything is raised, if everything else is raised, they will feel the need having to come out. If they don't want to come out, they have to lower the vibrations, and that's where it comes down to. So it's not about you.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Wow, that makes so much sense, and it makes so. And I'm almost getting chills, because I've experienced that. It's like going into someone. It's like hey, this is my comfort zone. I'm not going to get out of it. I'm going to see if I can get you to come in, you know, in my comfort zone. And that's crazy. You just changed my life. Thank you for that. Because I never thought about it.
Welcome.
It was, no one had ever articulated it in that way. It's like they're down on themselves, and you make them feel, instead of trying to raise up, you know, like you said, I'm going to bring you down. So it can work, so it can be effective, so it can be, you know, I can feel, you come basically in my world, my world. Thank you. Oh my goodness.
You're very welcome. I mean, you can see an easy example. If you see religious groups, for instance, religious groups, cultural groups, you know, any kind of group which is strongly affiliated with each other's customs. If somebody out of that group comes out, wants to step out and see it from an outside perspective, and the rest wants to stay in that tribe for whatever reasons, whether it's a religious group, whether it's a cultural group, whatever the reason or the purpose is. It could be even a sports group, you know, somebody affiliated to a certain sports event, or following football or something. So if somebody comes out and sees that in a different perspective and then starts criticizing, no, I don't think this is right, or this is wrong, how this has been done or practiced. I don't want to follow the whole part. I may not want to leave everything, but I don't want to follow it in its entire content because I don't feel it's right. So I will follow what I would like to follow. You will often get the criticism from the people who want to stay in that group because they're not strong enough to come out and look at it from the outside perspective, because you're actually disrupting their control over their own life, which their comfort zone, which they don't want to come out because they don't want to be looked at by others. How wrong they're doing, or maybe that they're stepping out. They don't want their children to be disrupted, to say, but mommy or daddy, this person came out, I want to be like them. So they want to bring you down in order to make or practice or continue what they're doing without having any difficulties. And that is why these things happen. I mean, I've experienced it myself so often because of my background. And because of the way how I am, that I've always been the person who looks outside of the box. I don't know if it's because of my childhood trauma that I was kind of forced to just come out and look at it in a different way, or if it's my nature, whatever it is. But I always came out and I always criticized to say that I'm not going to follow you blindly just because your father, your grandfathers have done that, or whatever you think, you believe it should be. Nothing can be so perfect. That is why we're human beings. That is why we're in this world. We have a mindset. Otherwise, we would be in the animal race. And you know my opinion about race as well. We wouldn't be in the human race. We would be animal race and purely act instinctively. The reason why God gave us a brain, a consciousness, intelligence about thinking between right and wrong outside of our instinct is because we should make use of it and not just live like animals in a tribe.
Wow. I'm so you have me. Oh my goodness. Wow. That is amazing. You have to, oh my goodness, you have to put that this has to, man, I never thought about that. You're right, it has nothing to do with me. Oh my goodness. And you know, when you said something about trauma, and I always wanted to know why I thought so differently, you know, because I'm like, I've never been a follower. I've always been like, I hate to say the word black sheep, but I've always been that person. Even, you know, when I went to Iraq and I went to, you know, Kuwait, I've always wanted to absorb the culture. And I always was like, you know, I just want to hear the people's opinions. I want to know these people. I want to get to know these people. I never, you know me, I don't get into that race thing. And I want to learn. You know, I want to learn about these people. I want to see what goes on in their culture, and I respect their culture. You know, if they say, hey, we don't allow anyone to wear purple, I'm not going to wear purple because I want to learn from them. You know, I'm going to respect their culture, but I also feel as though I'm not a follower of stuff, you know, so I can always look outside of the box. I can always listen, and I can always listen attentively to what people have to say. I want to hear. So it's like, I've never been afraid to be different. I'm okay with that, you know, and I've always got people so much in my life that tried to get me to fit there. And I never could understand it until today. And I never could understand it until, wow, you put it the way you did. And it makes so much sense, because I run into those people all the time. Even with Purpose and Resilience, I listen to these people who want to come on and say, hey, I want to come in and, help you with your program. And then they come in and they want to change it. And I'm like, but that's not what I want. And the changes that come is always something other than what I want. And I'm like, well, why would you even ask to come? And then you want to change it into revamp it. You're wanting to change it because you want to make it you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then when they say, well, if these changes are not going to happen, I can't help you buy. And I always say, hey, take care. Because I recognize that. That's one thing, but I could never articulate it and understand why. And I don't like control at all. If you ever want to make me uncomfortable, try to control me. And I would always feel that way. I cannot stand that. I will refuse you just so I can maintain some level of understanding and control. Especially if someone tries to control me. No, you got to do it this way. You got to do that. I refuse. And I remember the first time I ever did it was when someone important to me tried to control me, and I said, your opinion about me means nothing to me. I have my own objective. And I just couldn't, oh man, you just blew my mind.
You're very welcome.
It's so proud. I may have to call an emergency meeting today with my team and say, listen, look what I learned, and I know they've been up. I know they've been up. We was up since 2:00 last night, and then I had to get up and get my mom's. But that is so, wow. I never thought of that. And here it is in my mind. I thought it was always about me, And I'm like, wait a minute, it's, maybe maybe it's about me, maybe it's my fault. And it has nothing to do with me. Nothing. Wow. Oh my gosh, thank you. That's why I love you. You're amazing. Man, thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're very, very welcome about that. I mean, it just changes your perspective to yourself, and it takes the pressure off yourself as well, because you always question yourself. Why is these things happening? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. These things do come in your mind. Maybe I should change something. Maybe there is some substance to that, but there's often not. You have to understand that if we have our vision, if somebody has a vision in their mind, no one else can see your vision as you can see and understand it. No one else can. And as long as it's something which is not hurting somebody or harming somebody or something, as long as it doesn't go in the negative direction, there's no reason for you to stop doing what you're doing. Absolutely not.
Wow.
Because there will always be criticism. There will always be something. And criticism is always based on subjective opinions. It's never objective, ever. We cannot be objective to criticism when we're applying criticism, because we have a human mindset. We can only think of what we know or how we understand things. We can never pass on an objective opinion unless we're just reading out something from a book.
You're so right. Because I everything that I criticize is something that if I look at something, I say, I don't like that. It's always something I don't like.
That is your own opinion of your own understanding of what you've learned, of what you've been grown up with, of what you've absorbed from your environment.
Yeah. And it's crazy. I was, and at first I thought I was wrong. I was going to, my buddy wanted me to do this podcast. And I always ask the topic. And if I don't feel comfortable with something, I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable. And I know his topic is about a lot of racial things. And I told him, I just don't, that's not me. I don't look at things as just Black. Because I have so many wonderful friends, I have so many wonderful people. And I'm like, I think this is the problem. I think diversity works. And I never forget, me and him had a disagreement. And I said, I think diversity works if we divorce ourselves from our childhood beliefs and our belief system. I believe diversity works. And I said, it's not a problem when you have an open mind. If you look at things like, hey, you know what? I can learn from this culture. I can learn from that culture. Even if you can just apply some understanding and sit and just try to respect it. It's so beautiful, and to see certain things and you're like, wow, you can see some similarities even in yourself and in your culture. And I never forget, he got mad at me and we no longer friends over an argument. And you explained why we're no longer friends. And I'll never forget. And it was, I told him, I said, we do not own the rights to struggle. We don't own the rights to childhood trauma. We don't own the patent on childhood trauma and all this. It's so many cultures who've been through so much. But when you have a closed mind, you don't see it. You put those people on a pedestal that they don't want to be in, and they don't deserve. They don't want to be there.
But it also is, because we're social beings. We're naturally made to belong. Yeah. To belong to our kinness. That's what we're naturally made. Yes, yeah. Which is why a lot of people would be protective over their own kinness. That is the reason for that. Oh. It is about being protective over your own. Whatever you believe in, could be anything, could be racial, could be, as I said, cultural, could be anything. But whatever you believe in, they will be protective over that, and they will do anything not to break it out, or not to be disrupted, or for someone to offend that, if it makes sense. It's the same way if you come out of that tribe, like I've used that example earlier, and you look at it from the outside perspective, whether it's religious, whether it's cultural, whatever it is. People don't like that, because you're actually disrupting their comfort zone. You're actually making them think that there are other ways. Now, you're actually making them think to break their customs and see it with a different perspective. It takes a lot of work to do that. It's easier to follow something which you've always been told, which you've always been put in front of you, rather than having to use your own brain, go back to basic, take out all your books, not literally, but metaphorically, and look it in a different viewpoint. And unless you criticize something for yourself, you will actually not know if that is true or not. You will not know it. You cannot even explain that if you're following a religion, for instance, or if you're following God, whatever you believe in, if that is the right way to do, unless you criticize that point, you criticize that belief, you criticize that thought process, put rights and wrongs together, put negative and positive together, and then come to a conclusion.
Wow. You're right. I love this woman. I tell you, thank you. Wow, you're right. I never thought of it like that. I love information. I love information, and just, you're right, because I haven't even done that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you make me think about, reflect on myself, which I love doing. That's, wow, thank you for that.
You're very welcome. We are tribal animals. We need to come out of this tribal thought process to understand the world in a different way. And very, very few people are capable of doing so, because they're held back by fear. Fear is the part which is holding us back. The fear of failure, the fear of being judged, the fear of what the others are thinking, the fear of what will happen outside there. You know, what will happen? Maybe I'm lost, maybe I lose my support. And often people do lose the support. I mean, I have lost all my support because of certain reasons, because of things which have happened in my throughout my life, started from childhood. But I still have a certain mindset. I thought, you know what, I'm keep building on my resilience. I keep believing in myself, because I cannot keep living over other people's opinion, and they're not actually benefiting me in any way. I'm talking about when I'm in difficulties, no one is there. I have to pick myself up. So why am I listening to someone else's opinion? I need to make sense of that myself.
Yeah. This is the question I have. Could it be that because of childhood trauma, and you start to do the work on yourself, that you say, you know what, I no longer want to live in that, and because of that fear, you recognize it as fear because of your childhood trauma, that you start to become the person you are, to say, I'm going to be an open mind the way you are?
It's not because of childhood trauma. It's if you're in the healing process, and you start the healing process, you're in a good stage of the healing process. That is when you actually become this way. You do not become this way because there's many people who go through childhood trauma and never reach that stage. They always live in fear. They may commit suicide, or they may accept the way how it was, and then feeling guilty about themselves, or still listen to other people's opinion that it's their fault. You know, unless you understand that and you embrace that, not run away from it neither, because suppressing experiences, suppressing emotions actually make them worse. You have to embrace things. You have to accept that things happen in your life. They're not justified. I'm not justifying them, but they happened in your life. They're part of your life. They're part of who you are. And once you embrace these things from A to Z, whatever happened, that is when you start abstracting things which you can make useful to your own presence and your environment to create your future. That is what happens. So whatever you learned, even from abuse, for instance, if you have gone through abuse is not justified. That action is not justified. But what have you learned from that? Maybe you have taken out some form of points. Okay, maybe these are the emotions which somebody goes through. So let me understand the other person who I'm now talking to, who has gone through that, why they're acting a certain way. Maybe they can change their behavior. So it's about understanding and applying these things. I mean, I said that to another podcast host, guest as well before. I went through 12 years of marriage, my first marriage. He was from a Pakistani Punjabi household. It was a very, very difficult time. When I was thrown into that relationship with a strange family in a strange country, in strange environments, I was not grown up in a Punjabi household. I didn't even speak a word of Punjabi at all. I had no idea how it works. I had no idea how they behave. I was only a child still, still trying to find myself. So I wasn't even an adult. But during these 12 years, what I've discovered just by listening, observing, I suddenly started speaking like a natural. And my ex-husband was amazed about that. He said, I never knew you understand everything what we're doing, because I picked up on their behavior, I picked up on their reasoning, I picked up on their background, I picked up on their language, everything, their dialect. I could even suddenly speak different dialects of Punjabi, wherever somebody would come from, north, south, India, Pakistan, doesn't matter. I would be able to emulate that. And these are the things which you take out from your experiences. So I wasn't focused on what happened to me or what that person has done to me. I was focused on what have I learned from that? What can I take out and use it and practice it? And suddenly I was able to, I started as a linguist, which is, translating for other people in various settings. Suddenly I could adjust to a person. I came into a room and people would think I'm one of theirs, because I could adjust to their behavior, to the way how they were thinking, to the way how they were acting, and they didn't feel uncomfortable. They opened up to me with everything. And then I went into the mental health settings very, very quickly because of my understanding of these things, where they sent me to a specialized mental health interpreter, and then I became a psychologist in mental health as well, because of these skills which I actually adopted automatically. And that's why you put your focus on. When you have a challenge in front of you, anybody has challenges, less or more, focus on the solution. Do not focus on the problem itself, because it will not get you anywhere.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. You're right. Because one of the things that I used to say to myself is how I can adapt to certain stuff, and how I can listen to someone. And, even when I went, to Iraq, and I went to different places of the world, I've always had that ability to make people feel comfortable, and I guess that would become, my buddy would call me, he would say, oh, it's because you don't judge people. I don't judge people. I really don't. I don't judge people. I don't look at people and shame them for being, not like what I want them to be. I've never been that person. I've always been a person who had an open mind, and how I can go in different cultures. And I used to say, well, what does that got to do with when I went to Egypt? When I went to Egypt, I'm sitting in people's, houses, and they invited me into their homes and having a good time. I don't know those people. And that you explained it so eloquent. I thank you for this. Just you, oh my goodness, you get my brain working. You solve so many problems that I used to have, like, well, how did I was this person? And it was so, it's amazing. Even when I went to Iraq, I started to understand, because I would sit around them for so long, I would start to understand and listen to them. And I could not speak it, but I understood what they were saying, and I would start to pick up on it. And I would, and to my buddy, he used to say, oh, it's because of your childhood trauma, because you've been through and you had to notice everybody. And I never agree with that. I never agree with that, because I don't think that was it. I just think that I've always just had an open mind, and I wanted to learn. And I would watch and notice the mannerism of people, notice how the women interact, how the men interact, and I would pick up on it.
There's part of it which is innate, which can be innate, but a big part of that is through your experiences. So it has to do with your experiences, possibly childhood trauma, because we are naturally not born like this. That's why I'm saying part of it might be innate, where you are gifted, like even myself, maybe I'm just gifted in languages, in picking up people's behavior in general, but there's only a little part. A huge part, it makes you what you go through. And it's up to you what you take out of that and how you look at these things, what actually then creates the person who you are today.
Oh, whoa, wow. Okay, thank you. Oh my goodness, you just.
That is why I'm a life coach.
You just gave me something. You solved so many problems in my head that I had for years. And you know how someone gives you an answer that you don't necessarily agree with. You're like, that ain't it. That's not it. I hear what you're saying. I don't want to disagree with you, but that's not it. That's not the answer I'm looking for. And you gave me so much information and actually helped me realize, especially a relationship that I have right now, that I realize, okay, how I am interacting with that in a relationship and the reason why I feel that way. Thank you for that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And the other thing is also, you do not have to agree with everything. You know, it comes back to having your own mindset and stimulating your own brain, stimulating your own intelligence. That's what God has given us. He has given us our brain, our intelligence, to use it, to make use of it, not to follow blindly, regardless of what it is. Which is why we have to stimulate our brain to find out reasoning for that. I do not follow anything, even in my own religion, which I do not have done homework and research in and criticized it, or it doesn't make sense in my mind. If something doesn't make sense in my mind, then I will stay away. That's how I think anyway, because that is what emotional intelligence using is. You understand things better over time. You know, you start analyzing things in a better way, rather than just following something which has been said. I mean, we have very, very clear examples. I mean, go back in wherever you believe in religion or not. Go back in Moses' time. He went up the hill, came downstairs. People were worshipping cows and statues and all these golden things they were making, going back into their customs blindly, without actually thinking that the purpose which he wanted to bring had a different way about it. So that is exactly how people nowadays, or generally the majority of people, behave. They just follow blindly what they're accustomed to. And why they're following it? Because of the fear of being rejected. They want to belong somewhere. In order to belong somewhere, they feel they have to accept everything which is being said or practiced, regardless of what it is. And it takes more work for your brain not to accept it blindly. Use your own brain, criticize the thing which you've been put in front of or which you believe, and then reintroduce yourself to the thing. So I really reintroduced myself to my faith in my adult age. Based
on the criticism that you had of it.
That's right. And the common sense, the sense which it made to me.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. You just did so, because I'm gonna tell you what I did. It made so much sense to me, because what I did was I had a problem with my religion, and I had a problem with my faith and things that I was taught I didn't agree with, but I was forced to believe. And when I started to heal myself, and I started or go on this healing path, I should say, I started to say, you know what? I'm going to question these things. I'm going to question them, and I'm going to question it, see what I come up with. And at first it was a fear to question. But then when I started to say, all right, because I thought by putting that question to it, I was criticizing. And I thought, oh, you don't want to criticize God, you know? And I said, wait a minute, I'm not criticizing it. And then I came back, I took it back, I did what you said, and I came and I said, well, let me criticize it. And through that criticism, I had these questions and these things that I wanted answers to. And then when I came back to my religion, or on any religion or any belief in my faith, I came back with a belief system that I felt comfortable with and what I wanted. And it worked. Now I'm okay, you know, with certain things. Now I'm okay with being in certain rooms because that's what their belief system is. And that's okay. But now I feel better in my faith because it's now my walk. It's individualized to me, not because of what I've learned when I was a child or my family or anything like that. It's what is individualized to me.
That's right. And just to correct people who then say that, certain things you cannot keep changing into your own lifestyle. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about doing our own research and coming to a conclusion, to a valid conclusion. We're not talking about to something which we want to change to our own lifestyle. That's not what it's about. It's about finding the truth in its essence.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Oh my goodness. You just, oh man, wow. I'm gonna be pondering this all day. Well, oh, wow. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm so happy that, some of the things have helped you, especially because you're a lot more experienced with all these things which you've been doing. But yeah. I just use my brain. I mean, anything which makes sense to me, I just express it. If something doesn't make sense to me, I would not engage with that. That doesn't mean that I dismiss it. I will try to understand it. But if it doesn't make sense to me, then there's no point in arguing. There's no point in engaging in these things or agreeing in something. You just have to be true to yourself. That's what's important. If you deceive yourself, if you be untrue to yourself, if you hide your own feelings, if you hide your own character, that's when all these problems occur. And that's what people do outside, because of this fear of wanting to be themselves, their true self. They're rejecting everything else. They're rejecting actually the opportunity which they could have to become their true self, which is why so many people are unhappy. Why they're unhappy? Because they're hiding themselves, they're rejecting themselves.
I did that for so long. And I was incredibly unhappy. I think I did that for a large part, if not all, of my marriage. I wasn't myself. I wasn't what I wanted to be. I wasn't living the way I wanted to live, and I felt controlled. I felt like I wasn't in control of my own life. And because of that, I acted out on it. I was more angry, and argumentative and forceful in things that I shouldn't have been forceful in regards to just forcing myself to do things, that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go here. I forced myself to be around people who I didn't like.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have done that because I was more compromising to that person and it was hurting me.
But it is also okay if you're too hard to yourself. You have to remember that we grow as human beings. I mean, I've got a slogan on my social media which says, let me just check quickly, because I thought it just makes sense. Even the way how I am, what I'm projecting in my program is grow, heal, rise, and become. That is so important. That is my slogan in my program. Reprogram your mind through growing, healing, rising, and then becoming. That is your journey. That is your journey, what you need to do. You cannot dismiss one or the other. You have to embrace these things, these steps, in order to become the true person who you are. And that is when you find true happiness for yourself. True happiness doesn't mean, oh, I've won £1 million, or I've got a great job, or I've got so many friends and family around you who appear to love me, so on. That's not what true happiness means. True happiness means that you're even going through challenges and you're feeling, yes, anxiety comes about. That's also normal, but you're feeling content with yourself. You can deal with situations. You're feeling at peace with yourself. And that doesn't mean that you don't feel lonely. People always misconstrue that because we're social beings. When we're on our own, we do feel lonely, but it's okay to feel lonely. It's fine. That's a natural feeling to have because we are social beings. But in general, to feel at peace within yourself, that is only when you actually become. You don't feel at peace on any of the other stages previously. You have to kind of become, not fully become, but even if you're in that stage of becoming your true self, that is when you feel this peace inside you, and people will automatically pick up on that. Do not believe if somebody says you attract who you are. That is not the case, because if you're a good person, you will attract the good and the bads.
Of course.
It will naturally happen. It's about when you're in that stage of becoming or have become the true self. That is when you open your mind and can then analyze from the goods and the bads, from the positives and the negative, and set your boundaries and say, no, you know what? I can let you enter and leave my life, but I will not let you take over my life again. That is not what will happen.
You know, that's so interesting with me, because one of the things that I felt uncomfortable with when I started doing this journey was feeling out of control. I started to notice when I didn't feel in control, you know, and I wanted to change. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like the way this feels. This makes me feel out of sorts with myself, and I don't want to feel that. So I became direct, and I asked I never forget, I asked my therapist, and I said, you know, why is it that everybody that I talk to that does this healing work and do this journey, they are direct. They're not like, oh, well, you know, no, they're like, no, that's not what it is. It's this, it's that, this is how I look, and this is how and they always say, this is how I feel. And this is, you know, if I don't want to do this, I'm not going to do it. And she said, well, because you start to be in control of yourself and you no longer allow other people's opinions that you may not agree with to control you.
That's
and you're
right.
like, that's not what I'm going to do. And I admire
and you do not dismiss that neither. You know, sometimes people want to suppress that person or dismiss that person fully out of their life. You must not do that, because whether it's this person or another person, it will always come back one way or the other. You need to be able to manage these things. And the way how you manage your life is to allow things to happen, but not let them take over your life.
And I used to, when I first started, I used to admire people like that. And I would be like, wow, I just want to, you know, I'm curious as to how they become. You know, how did you become that person that that would say, hey, I'm not going to let this take over me? You know, because realistically, and I'm with you on that when you say, you know, you're not what you know, you are what you attract. I never believed that. I always say, you're not what you attract, you are what you entertain. Whatever you entertain is yours. You know, you're entertaining this clown, then, you know, you're probably a clown.
That's right.
So it's always been one of my things. Like I said, I go back to that, where I've always looked at people and I'm like, wow, man, how did that person become, to me, in my words, is direct. They're very direct. You know, when my friend, a good friend of mine, he has a certain comfort level of being direct. And he's far advanced to me, you know, and I used to be like, I would fold, or I would try to find some compromise, you know. He's like, no, that's not what I want to do. And he would be okay with it. And it doesn't matter who the person was, boss, friend, kids, whatever, it didn't matter. If it wasn't something he wanted to do, he wasn't doing it. And with me, I would be like, okay, when does it happen? Okay, at 12 o'clock. All right. All right, let me see if I can finagle some things around to make it happen. And he was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to do that, and I'm not doing it. And I'm like, you're okay with that? And the more I meet people like how you talking and how I am talking, now I understand, you know, why. And it's like you said, you have to be able to manage it. Because it's not going to stop with that one person. You're going to meet these people over and over and over again and over again. And he says, and he tells me all the time, yeah, some things I may have to compromise, because of the kids or because of whatever. Yes, I may have to compromise it because this is just life. But certain things that I don't have to compromise, I'm not going to do. Like he's a vegan, he's vegan and he doesn't go and does it for the environment. And he also does it for his health reasons. And he doesn't believe in eating that. That means that he's not going to go places that serve meat. He's not going to do it, and no matter where he at. And I remember one time his family was like, hey, we're going to go to a birthday party. And it was going to be at a steakhouse. And he said, well, I'm not going. I'm not going. They was like, well, it's a birthday party. He says, okay, I'm still not going. And I've watched him and I'm like, I would have compromised and be like, okay, I'll go, but I'm not eating nothing there. He's like, no, I don't believe in that.
But that is okay. He has a different belief set with that. For me personally, it's okay to go to a certain place. I do not have to entertain what they're doing. So I do my own. They do their own. So if I'm a vegetarian, I would eat my vegetarian dish, and I'm perfectly okay for them to have their meat. For instance, if I was a vegetarian, I personally don't eat pork, for instance. I don't believe in that for certain reasons, not just religiously, but also scientifically. I've done my own research. As I said to you, I always do my own research. I don't believe in that, so I don't eat pork, regardless of who it is, regardless of what it is. And I've always been in an environment, I've grown up in Germany, always been in an environment where there was a lot of pork around me, but it never interests me. If I'm in a place where people are smoking or taking drugs, as a child even, many teenagers get encouraged about peer pressure or anything else. It doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
Smoke goes on my skin, on my clothes. I don't like the way how it is. I don't like how it damages your lungs. I just don't like it. It doesn't interest me. You can offer it to me or put any pressure, whatever you want. I can stand right next to you and it wouldn't faze me. And I think that is also a difference. Instead of everybody has their own opinion. Instead of avoiding something completely, if you don't put yourself into the devil's den and face these challenges, I'm not talking about stupidly, using your brain as well, then you would not know how resistant you are actually to these things. You would not know it.
That's the way I look at it.
Exactly. That's how you build your own resistance about that. And you build your own self-control about these things as well. In facing things, you cannot tell me you're a good person or you're a God-fearing person if you hide yourself into your own home all the time and do not want to face anybody or do not want to speak to another person who is ungodly in your own mindset. You cannot say that unless you've been challenged.
That's me. I would, like I said, I don't knock him. I understand.
No, you have to understand. You have to respect everybody.
I respect him.
Exactly.
And but I admire his strength to stay on where he's at. Yeah. I may find some disagreement. I would have went and just found something for me. I'm plant-based. So I would have found something for me to eat, like, okay, I may not like this, but let me find some way where I can still be social. It wouldn't have mattered what you would have put in me. I wouldn't have eaten it. This is what this is what I believe. And I remember, and I shared this with him, and I'll share it with you when I had my situation where me and my buddy, he wanted me to come to a retirement party and I was going to go. And I said, hey, well, let me go look at the menu. And I believe in sustainable meats, and I said, I believe in sustainable, meats. I don't believe in commercial meats and things killed humanely. But I'll still go. And I looked and I said, oh, okay, well, they don't have anything, there, because I know his wife was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So I knew that there had to be something around it. And I went and I just went and I just said, hey, I'll just have some coffee. It wasn't there that anything that I can eat per se. I didn't, they didn't have a salad. I thought they would have a salad and they didn't have a soup that I would like. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm okay. I'll just have some coffee. Coffee will sustain me until I leave and then I'll go home and I'll eat. but I still went because I wanted to be social. It didn't matter what they had on their plates. You know, I still maintained my self-control and my resilience to be able to have a good time and enjoy and still stay the path for what I believe in, you know? And I think I was talking to someone and the guy said, well, you're not going to eat. I was like, no, they don't have anything I want. And he was like, why? I said, well, I kind of believe in sustainable meats and, humanely killing of animals. I don't, partake in that. So they didn't serve seafood. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable getting anything. So, but I still was social and I was still okay with, and I was proud of myself because I was okay to explain it.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, I don't have to explain anything to you. No, I don't have a problem explaining why I don't do anything. I'm okay with that. I'm just not going to shut the person out and just say, oh, I don't have to explain anything to you. How dare you even question me? No, I just told him, I just don't believe in it. And the guy was like, oh, okay. And I went back to drinking my coffee and I was okay with that, So that's why I say to me, I think it's a balance with things. Like I said, with him, I don't knock him. He does it for environmental and all that beliefs, and that's okay. But me, I would have challenged my resilience.
Yeah.
I would have challenged it to sharpen it even sharp and even harder, even more to build it up. I would have taken that as a great opportunity to build up my resilience.
But that is where work comes in. Not everybody is ready for the work. It takes a lot of brain work to do so. We do not understand. And I'm not putting his opinion down at all. It's just about, sorry, if you have to go, just let me know.
Yeah, I got like maybe 5 more minutes.
That's absolutely fine. We're over time anyway, so I'm not. I appreciate all your time.
I'll talk to you for hours.
Thank you. So, what it is, if we actually, instead of suppressing our opinions, sometimes we can enlighten somebody with other options, or with other opinions, or with other thought process, because somebody may not understand that and it's just curious, the same way we want to learn from other people and are curious. So it just helps another person to understand a certain way and may not become too resilient or too negatively charged about certain things. Why a certain person is not practicing certain things or does not want to do that. It just makes them understand things better. So being open about your own thought process comes automatically being comfortable with yourself, believing in yourself, believing in what you do, believing in things you practice or don't want to do, So it all comes down to self-improvement. And when you're in that stage of becoming, that is when you act like this. And that is when people are then attracted to your energy, to your aura, to the way how you are, to your expressions, to everything which you represent, without actually feeling in any way, because you would not have the need personally. And I'm sure you can relate to that, me in the same way. I do not go out there to say, oh, I want to be liked or loved by people, or how many people are after me on social media, or what they're taking out of that. It doesn't interest me. I just want to put my message across, how I feel it has helped me and how I feel it makes sense, or how I feel it could improve generally life. That's all what it is. I have no interest in wanting to get the praise of people. If it comes, it's a bonus, but it's not my purpose, or it's not my focus on that. So that is how it should be. And that is automatically, when you become comfortable with yourself, that people will pick up on that and want to obtain this comfortability, or dim your lights because they don't want to come out. So it's two ways.
Yes, you are 100% right. And I think that's something that I told him this, I said, when I first started this healing, I always would think that it's a boundary for people to do something. It's a boundary. And I would do all this other stuff because I was hide. because that's the first thing you want to do, because you're thinking you're in this vulnerable place. You have to figure out what to do with your vulnerability. And when I started to become comfortable with me being vulnerable, I would explain, hey, I don't want to eat that, or I don't want to eat that. That's fine. Well, no, just take a little bit. No, I don't want it. Well, no, I don't want that. And you can be okay with explaining things better, and it's okay if people don't like it. You understand that people are not going to like it, and people are not going to understand your choices and your decisions. Yeah. But I guarantee you are in their subconscious mind, you're
creating an impact. You're creating an impact on them. That is what it is, without actually wanting to do that. But because you're so comfortable with yourself, you are creating an impact.
And it's something where the people are starting to think how they can implement it in their lives, and they may not tell you or give you the credit, and that's fine. They shouldn't, but it does something for you. Thank you so much for this.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure you have. Thank you. We should make a part 2 then, in that case, at some point.
I can talk to you for hours.
Oh, thank you. That was so lovely, Joe. Thank you very much. And whatever you're doing, have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Yes. I have to take the kids. We're going to go out. I promised them that we were going to go out and kite flying today.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. How's the weather there? Hopefully as good as it is. Okay.
It's supposed to be windy all the way up to like maybe 5 at my time. So that's why they're looking at me like, hey, Dad, we got the kites. Let's go. And, we're supposed to go get some lunch and have a good time. This is one of the days I have off from doing any craziness.
Oh, thank you so much for taking some time then for me. I don't want to hold you any more back for your children. Okay, send all my love to your children, even though I don't know them or they don't know me. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful time. And I'll let you know, I will tag you also in once this is published and send you a message. And please feel free to share it, whatever you want to do.
Sure will. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. We shall speak again very soon.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
If you like the clip, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more to come.